Hi, testing. We'll start at 12:30. Can you hear me clearly?
Can you hear me clearly? Can you...
Hi. I said someone said no if they can hear. We'll start in the next 2 to 3 minutes. Hello? Yes, we are about to start. That's why you can't hear me. We'll start at 12:30 sharp. Is there voice? Somebody's writing no voice on this. Can someone from Entab confirm that they have me on voice? So, good afternoon, everyone. Just before we start, can you sort of give me a message on the chat, whether you are teachers, parents, what is your own background, so I can better appeal to your own background? So, can we have some answers on chat, whether most of you are teachers or parents or some students who are taking part in this Facebook Live session? YouTube Live session, sorry. So, I see there are some teachers here and some students as well. Very good to see that. So, very good afternoon to all of you. I'm Shreevats Jaipuria. I'm the Vice Chairperson of Seth M.R. Jaipuria schools and the Jaipuria Institutes of Management. We have about 30,000 students across 36 schools and colleges in the states of Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and Bihar. And I'm here to speak to you about, on the topic of going back to school, on the idea of how do we prepare ourselves to go back to school whenever that is possible, and how we should think about this COVID 19 crisis, and how we can use this crisis to teach our children, our students, about decision making and help them get ready for the 21st century. So I will speak for about 15 minutes, and then hopefully we can have some question answers as well. So, as all of you know, since March, India, along with the rest of the world, has been responding to this unprecedented COVID 19 crisis. Since the last pandemic of this scale and size was more than 100 years ago, the Spanish flu, which started in the year 1918, none of us have living memory of the last pandemic. However, global society is much better equipped to understand and respond to the pandemic than it was 100 years ago. Of that, there is no doubt. Within a month of the start of this pandemic, scientists were able to identify and map the genome of COVID 19 and understand how it spreads. Though we do not understand everything about there is to understand about this virus, we know a lot relative to the short time span that we have been affected to it across the world. Countries across the world, including in India, have adopted social distancing as a means to protect themselves against the faster spread of this virus. This gave them time to ramp up their medical infrastructure, including quarantine centers, hospital beds, and ventilators, and also to frame a policy response. I compliment the Indian government for doing a lockdown relatively early as compared to other countries so that our medical system was not overwhelmed, such as that of even some advanced countries such as Italy, Spain, UK, and the United States of America. By some accounts, not even 5% of the capacity that India has created to treat COVID patients has been used till date. Now that we are confident that this disease will not overwhelm our healthcare system, the government is slowly relaxing lockdown rules to allow for economic activity and in the future, probably learning activity for schools and colleges to resume in coming times. Schools and colleges were amongst the first uh, institutions to be closed down physically as the virus spread because we wanted to protect our youngsters and our students the most. Most schools transitioned quickly to online learning and online classes. The teaching community across all schools, and I don't want to talk only about Jaipuria, but across largely all schools across India, put their students ahead of their own family. It's really a compliment to how teachers are the unsung heroes of this COVID 19 crisis. And in these difficult times, teachers work tirelessly to learn a new medium of online learning and learn to work from home. They were ably supported by students and parents. Parents also put their children ahead of themselves, gave them their own mobile devices in many cases to ensure that learning continues for their children. They had to make space within homes from which their children could concentrate on their studies. This was especially true for homes in which there were two or more children, and parents made space for them so that they could both study, and they did it really well. We are now looking at a situation where technology is not overwhelming us. It is rather becoming part of a new normal for all of us, where we are using technology seamlessly for everything, including learning at schools. Today, every bedroom has transformed into a classroom, and every parent is working side by side with the teacher to deliver learning. There are 300 million families across India trying to replicate the school experience at home. We realize that this has not been easy, but it has also been an exciting experience. I congratulate the teachers, students, and their parents for making this possible. As a school owner, if you had asked me whether such learning was possible only a few months ago, whether such learning was possible for our students at home, I would have definitely said no. But I was wrong. It has happened. It shows that human beings have the ability to make the previously unimaginable things a reality in a very short time. But school is not only about academic transmission. Though academic transmission of knowledge has happened very successfully, children have missed out getting out of their homes, meeting their friends, learning from their friends, learning from their everyday experiences. And we hope and pray that we can get back to the situation where students start coming back to school very quickly. India and the world are reopening slowly but surely. Some people think that this is because we have given up the fight against the coronavirus and that's why we are opening up. I strongly believe that this is not the case. Our fight against coronavirus has transitioned into its next stage of battle as we have realized as a society two things. Firstly, as I said, our medical infrastructure is well prepared and we are not likely to get caught unawares or get overwhelmed like that happened in Italy, Spain, or the USA. We have used the lockdown period well to prepare ourselves. The second is that the disease is likely to stay in our society for at least one more year. And I say at least one more year while we develop a vaccine. As we expect a vaccine in the next 12 to 18 months, we must realize that the present record in history of developing a vaccine was for the mumps vaccine, which took a 4 year development time. And there are many diseases, many viruses especially, for which the world has not been able to develop a vaccine at all. So, with better science and technology, we can expect a higher percentage chance that a vaccine is developed and probably a quicker time to develop the vaccine of 12 to 18 months. Subsequently, we'll have to create 700 crore dosages of this vaccine to be given to every person in the world. This is going to take time. It's definitely going to take time in years rather than months. How do we want the next 1 to 2 years at a minimum to look? What is the new normal that all of us are looking for? What will this new normal look like? As a parent, will I be able to go back to work? Will I be able to go to social events? Will I be able to travel? What is going to happen to my economic status? I know a lot of parents, a lot of us in society are worrying about our jobs, our businesses, as the economic activity has come to a complete halt. As it starts to reopen, we worry about whether I will have a job to go back to. Will my business survive this virus? How will me and my office ensure that there is social distancing? What if there is a case in office? Whatever there is a case in neighborhood, will we go back to complete shutdown? Or do we have some better means of reacting? Similarly, there are a set of questions for our students and our children as well. Will they go back to school? If they don't go back to school and academic delivery continues online, what are they missing? How is this going to affect their long term development? Is school only about academic success and learning, which can be transferred online? Or does the school experience have more to give you? Is not meeting friends affecting the development of my child? What measures will be taken once schools reopen to protect them? Will there be social distancing in school? Is this really a possibility that schools and in India, as we know, large classrooms, is social distancing possible in these scenarios? How will social distancing be implemented? Will there be temperature checks in our schools? Will school shut down if there is a COVID case in the school, or will only the class shut down? Or will only the kids who have come into contact with the COVID affected student be closed down? Will the school be able to ensure a zero coronavirus spread? We have more questions than answers. This is the reality of the world we live in today. We have some answers, but we don't have all the answers yet. In case of schools, it's extremely important that school managements, teachers, parents, government, and our society are able to think about these questions well in advance and with a lot of thought and logic rather than react to these situations as and when they happen. Some of the options that are being discussed as we look at a school opening probably in July, August, or at latest, I believe, in September. Some of the options that are being discussed right now are that we have to get our students back to school. We cannot keep our households closed. As our prime minister has also come out and said that the earlier in lockdown one we talked about a Lakshman Rekha at home, but now slowly there has been some sort of economic reopening. We realize that schools also will have to be reopened. So how can we get our students back in school while minimizing risk? We can't close school for a full academic year when we don't know whether it's going to be 12 months, 18 months, 1 year, 2 years. So we know that we can't completely close school for 1 or 2 years without affecting the development of our children. We shouldn't unlearn the lessons of online learning that we have learned during lockdown. I probably see the future of blended learning, at least for the next 1 to 2 years. One of the options being discussed is that the school will probably open alternate days for alternate students so that 50% of the students can come to the school, enjoy the benefits of meeting a smaller classroom, maintaining distance from their peers, while 50% of the students continue to learn from home. And then after a few days or a week, they can switch. So it will be some sort of an odd even, which allows social distancing. Of course, we have to wait for the government to give clear instructions, but this is definitely one of the options that has been discussed for reopening of schools. Temperature checks are going to become the norm. It may seem very odd now, but when you talk about 20 years ago, so did security checks at airports. If I spoke to my parents, they could easily say that 20, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, while going onto a plane, you didn't have any security check and you could almost walk onto a plane. But today, as a society, we've accepted that doing some security checks at airports is the norm. Similarly, I think we will have to learn as a society and be okay with the fact that there will be temperature checks across the board while we are dealing with this virus in our society. So that includes schools, that includes colleges, that includes workplaces. Eventually, when shops and malls reopen, it may include that as well. Our age old namaste will become back to the new normal rather than the handshakes. Hand sanitizers, hand hygiene would be things that are taught about at school, and this will become a big focus area for schools as well as households. I think the physical solutions are probably the easier ones where we have some direction already about how what will be the physical direction of some of these issues. There are tougher questions to answer though. At the end of 1 or 2 years, will our children come out stronger having dealt with this adversity and adapted? Or we and our children will come out more fearful, more scared? I think this, for me, is the most important issue, and our response to the COVID crisis will ensure whether we can use this unprecedented thing as a learning opportunity or something that will reinstill fear in our children. I'm sure all of us want our children to be stronger, to be more adaptable, and to be less scared. I think this crisis will determine uh, and be a huge moment in which direction we take and our children take. How do we make sure that out of this crisis comes out a stronger and tougher generation rather than a generation that is weaker and more scared? Can we use COVID to teach high stakes decision making to our children? Before this COVID crisis, I've been going place to place at our schools at various conferences. And the one question we always get as educators, as school management, is how is the school preparing preparing our children for the 21st century? Many people ask me, what are the 21st century skills a school should be looking at? And one of the terms or acronyms that is most often used nowadays, I don't know if some of you have heard of it, is called VUCA. They say 21st century is a VUCA century or a VUCA world. What does this VUCA mean? VUCA is VUCA. In VUCA, the V stands for volatility, which means things are changing very, very fast. Something that was not there 2, 3 months back we didn't know about this coronavirus, and now it has totally consumed our lives and our mind space. So things can change very fast. This is true of the coronavirus as it is true of our society at large. We see companies, we see fashions, we see technologies changing very, very fast in this 21st century. The second U stands for uncertainty. No one knows what will happen tomorrow. This is again quite true of the coronavirus. We don't know what 3 months would look like, what 6 months would look like. I said myself, we don't know exactly when a vaccine would come out. But this is true not only of the coronavirus, but of the 21st century in general. A company is doing well today, we don't know whether it will do well tomorrow. A product is doing well in a market this year, we don't know whether it will do well tomorrow. So, this coronavirus is also an example of a VUCA world, an uncertainty that is going to be more and more there in the 21st century. C stands for complexity. Complexity means that no one person completely understands how to deal with a problem. And a problem is across many disciplines together. Earlier, maybe in the 20th century, there was discipline wise problems. If you were an engineer, you could solve a certain problem. If you were a doctor, you could solve a certain problem. But in the 21st century, most problems that we face are cross disciplinary. This means that even if you look at the coronavirus, it has health implications, yes. It has public policy implications, yes. It has economic implications, yes. So it's a very complex problem, and none of us are able to have all the data to understand the problem fully. And the last A stands for ambiguity, which means probably there is no right answer. When should the lockdown have been imposed? How many days should the lockdown be? What should be the difference between lockdown 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4? The government has tried to respond to the best of its abilities. But there is no one across the world. Many countries have dealt with the problem in many different ways. You look at countries which have been more liberal, you look at countries which have been stricter, such as China, or countries that have been more liberal, such as some countries in Europe or the US. Nobody at the end of it is going to be able to say this was completely right and this was completely wrong. There is a lot of ambiguity in this problem. So what I want to tell you is that if we are trying to prepare our students or our children for the 21st century, how we respond to problems such as the coronavirus, how decision making takes place within our families, within our homes, is probably going to be a lesson that they are going to have learned coming out of this coronavirus. We are making decisions each and every day about how we are responding to this virus, even as a family, even as a household. Every day we are deciding, should I go to get grocery today? Should I get home deliveries today? Should I meet my neighbor or not? Can my child go down to play in the building or in my house? Can he play in the garden? Now, how are we thinking about these problems? How are we responding? You are actually setting an example about how your child would respond to his or her problems in the 21st century. So I think as parents, as teachers, we are the role models, and how we respond to this problem is going to be probably the biggest impact on our children for these coronavirus years. You will have to make more and more such complex decisions as things start to open up. When you were told to stay within the boundaries of your own home, probably you had few decisions. Should I buy groceries? Who should go for groceries? Should I wear a You had to wear a mask? Should I wear gloves? Should I have a bath as soon as I come back? So you had some decisions to make. But the quantum of those decisions and the complexity of those decisions is going to increase greatly as things started to open up. You will start going to office as parents. I'm talking about parents will start going back to offices. You will have to start interacting with people. How you have these interactions? What sort of social distancing measures do you have? Do you go back to work in the first place? How do you weigh economics versus certain safety measures? So I think you are going to be taking these decisions one way or another. I think it's important that you take these decisions consciously. You are able to discuss with your child your decision making framework, how you are weighing certain risks, how you are fighting your own fears, how you are acknowledging your own fears, because fear is a reality in all of us. We have to accept those fears. We have to tell our kids we are feeling this fear and this is what we are doing to overcome these fears. So the examples we set will go a long way in getting our students mentally prepared to go back to school. There are risks and opportunities on both sides, and we must be able to balance those risks and those opportunities. We simply don't know enough on what. I cannot answer the question on what day they will go or your kids will go back, but I can certainly tell you that you will have very important decisions to make along with your children. And I think there is a risk of being both overly optimistic and not following any norms, and being overly pessimistic and being driven by fear. And it's very important that we avoid both. We avoid being totally optimistic and thinking that just because the lockdown has ended, whenever it will, we don't need to follow any social distancing, we don't need to wear a mask, we need to go back to that old normal. I don't think that's the right way. At the same time, I don't think it's right if we are totally pessimistic and we feel that even though the lockdown has ended, people are going back to work, going back to school. I will protect my child. I'll not let them go anywhere. So we have to find a balance between these two things. And that balance is going to be a balance that we have to find each and every day, continuously respond to the changing problems, to the circumstances in our particular city, in our school, in our society. So it's this sort of decision making is going to be really the key to successfully responding as a family. So the first thing is we must adapt to find a new normal. Things are not going to go back to the same old normal. We must wear a mask. Simple solutions that don't compromise anything. Wearing a mask, wearing some sort of face shield, maintaining distance. In India, we have this issue where we are stand very sometimes very close together as compared to Western countries where there's a greater sense of personal space. Can we learn something from that? Can we implement some sort of personal space? Employ better hand hygiene, cleanse yourself after coming back from home. So these are things that don't cost us anything. These are things that don't cost us anything in terms of money, in terms of monetary outlay, but they also don't cost us things in terms of compromising our learning, compromising what we want to do every day in terms of our economic activities. So it's important that we make these simple decisions right and are not going back to an old normal where we were not affected by this disease as well. Similarly, we must fight fear. We are all scared, and that's okay. But we must realize that there is fear amongst us, and fear is not a good driver for growth. We must learn to take precautions, but we also must realize it's probably not possible for us as parents and for our students to sit at home for the next 1 to 2 years. We might have to learn to live with this disease for a longer time and wait for many years for herd immunity to develop if a vaccine is not successful, which is also a possibility. So we must learn to take precautions and fight fear. The examples, the decision making that we do at home, the openness that we have with our children on about how we are making decisions, how we are using facts, science, and our rationality to take decisions are going to be the biggest learners for learning tools for our students. The learning that we will get out of this crisis, when most of us that are probably on this webinar have kids in school, or our kids ourselves in school, are this is going to be our response to COVID is going to be the biggest learning opportunity our students will have probably through their academic career. It has the ability to teach them more about 21st century thinking and success opportunities than anything they learn at schools. And that will be based on the conversations, on the decision making process. So, in conclusion, I want to say find a new normal. Uh, don't go back to the habits or the carelessness of old normal. We will have to change ourselves. We will have to take protection, but at the same time, we will have to not be driven by fear. Secondly, set an example. Think through questions, not only between parents and students, between teachers. What should we do? How should we implement social distancing? Uh, it's really a time we talk about a more flat organizational structure. We talk about a more flat world where people can sit, talk together, come to solutions together. Really the decision making process we use is going to be more important than what decision we come to, because no one has all the answers in today's world. It's the decision making process that's very important. Use this as a learning opportunity for the 21st century skills. I spoke about VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. I think coronavirus has all of these to a scale that we have never ever seen before. It's a huge learning opportunity for all of us how to deal with this. If we can deal with this, I think we'll be able to deal with many problems that we have to face throughout our lifetimes. And then problems such as job losses, economic changes, recession will seem so small 10 years, 15 years, 20 years later. When our children are dealing with these problems, they'll feel this is a problem I can deal with. I dealt with coronavirus in a much bigger way. So take the lessons of coronavirus and don't unlearn the lessons that you have learned. Digitization has been a huge lesson that we have all learned. How much can be done sitting at the comfort of our own homes? Let's not forget it. I think as a school owner, I would like to say one thing that I have learned is that now, in case it's too hot in the summer, too cold in the winter, there's some communal disharmony and schools are asked to close. Schools will never close. Only school buildings will close, because we've learned to transact school uh, from the comfort of our own homes and from the safety of our own homes as well. So don't unlearn the lessons that you have learned in coronavirus. Let us use this as an opportunity. So I'll spend the next few minutes taking some questions. If there are some questions on this chat, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed the chat. I enjoyed the talk. So I'm just going to look at the chat now for a few questions. So Adhiraj has asked, should teaching shift if teaching should shift online, what can be done to help those who can't attend online classes due to the absence of mobile phones, laptops, or internet itself? I think this is an excellent question by Adhiraj, because even as we talk about private schools shifting to online classes, the reality is that still in households we don't have in some households we do not have these things, and therefore it's important that to bring these households also back into the learning sphere, schools are reopened with some sort of social distancing so that some content can be better transmitted. I'm quite confident that government policy would allow us to reopen schools in the next few months, so that everybody can get advantage of school and not only those who have the benefit of mobile phones, laptops, or internet. Someone has asked, should we not prepare ourselves for online classes for the whole of the term 2020-21, keeping in mind that the condition may worsen? So I think it's a possibility. I don't think it's the most likely possibility. Even if you look at government response over the last few days, the government response is more towards reopening and dealing with this virus as an open society. We realize that we can't completely shut off our children. It's not good for their mental development, it's not good for their physical development. So we will have to find a new normal where we take safety measures unless things get much worse. And I think it's not that we've given up the fight. I think if you missed some part of my earlier on in the speech, it's about we have better prepared our health system, we better prepared how to quarantine spaces. So just the battle against coronavirus is moving to a new phase where we have to face coronavirus outside our homes also, rather than only inside our homes, slowly and surely, of course, uh, as government policy also allows it to. uh, Rajiv has asked, can we design a school education program based on webinars? Definitely, I think a lot of schools, a lot of organizations are doing this. Entab is doing this series as part of that. So definitely a lot can be done from our safety of our own homes. But at the same time, we must realize that if we don't go to schools, if we don't get out of our own homes, there is something we are missing as well. We are missing the effects of socialization, which give us learning, which give us mental satisfaction. And that is also a choice. Not going to school is also a choice. And we must weigh the costs and benefits of that choice uh, each and every day, which most of us are doing. We'll have more such decisions to make, I think, once things open up and we have more choices. Uh, Then Jyoti is asking, what kind of training do you suggest for teachers to take up during this model? So I think a lot of teachers have done an amazing job at the kind of trainings that they have done to be able to reskill themselves, readapt themselves, uh, and I think that will, it's amazing. What they thought was unthinkable, they have done that. So I think it's going to be a lesson when we talk about lifelong learning. I think all of us have been forced into that lesson. I'll take the last one or two questions. So somebody, Manav has asked, parents and governments are saying no fee during lockdown periods. How to convince them that teachers are teaching and learning is taking place? So most of the states that we are working with, actually, I think there is a lack of understanding. The government in the states that we are working with, at least I know UP, Bihar, etc., are not saying no fee. They are saying that instead of taking quarterly fee, schools should allow parents to pay monthly fee so that there is no burden on parents. There's not that high a burden, and I think parents are cooperating. So I think sometimes news in India gets sensationalized. I think government largely, and of course states have responded differently, but largely government is not saying no fee. Government is realizing, parents are realizing the efforts that teachers are putting in, and schools, if parents and schools both need to support each other. Schools can support parents by shifting from a quarterly system to a monthly system for this lockdown period, and parents can support by paying the fee on time, because for schools, there's not much saving that schools are having. Just maybe some electricity is being saved, but other than that, they have to pay teachers are working doubly hard, they're investing in IT infrastructure. uh, then we have a question: what initiatives has Jaipuria group taken for learning beyond curriculum? So at Jaipuria, we are not only transacting curriculum but also trying to tie up with various to have various online classes uh, for music, some apps for music. We're trying to do something for experiments for science, and giving a lot of learning which goes beyond only the academic content of schools. But at the same time, I do believe that some things do get left out, and for that reason, it is important that the experience of going to school for a child, we are able to make it a new reality, a new normal. And with that, I'd like to end. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. Thank you for your questions. It was a pleasure speaking to you. Thanks for doing this on a Sunday and listening to me. Thanks.